Okay, let's dive right into this. Welcome to today's explainer, where we're going to unravel a topic from Vedic astrology that honestly can cause a fair bit of anxiety when you first stumble across it. But I promise you, it is ultimately incredibly empowering once you understand the mechanics at play. We are talking about Gandanta placements, which you might know as the karmic knot. Look, if you or maybe your child has this placement in your birth chart, it might feel a little overwhelming right now. But stick with me, because by the end of this explainer, you're going to see why it's actually a really profound, totally unique opportunity for soul-level growth.
So, I want you to picture this. What happens when a massive emotional river flows directly into a raging cosmic fire? Take a second to really visualize that visceral collision of elements. Spoiler alert, you don't get a nice, relaxing hot spring. No way. You get intense steam, heavy turbulence, massive unpredictability, and a tremendous release of energy. And according to the source material, this exact elemental clash happens at very specific, critical astrological junctions in the zodiac. It's not some gentle, smooth transition, it is a full-on collision of cosmic forces.
And this brings us to the core concept, Gandanta. Let's break that down. The term actually comes from two Sanskrit words. You've got Gand, which means knot, and Anta, which means end. Put them together, and it literally translates to the ending of a knot. Now, in the vast ocean of astrology, these zones represent some really deep-seated, past-life karmic issues. The soul's energy is fundamentally tangled up here. It's like a critical junction where the energy doesn't just flow naturally, it collides, right? And it basically forces the individual to untie these knots through some pretty intense life experiences in order to move forward. So, let's look at the exact astrological mechanics causing this turbulent void. A Gandanta occurs at the precise junction where a water sign ends and a fire sign begins. Think about the crazy contrast there. You've got the water signs, which are deeply emotional, super internal, and very fluid. And right where they terminate, the fire signs ignite. And fire is action-oriented, totally external, and highly combustive. Because this transition involves a change in both the zodiac sign and the nakshatra, the lunar mansion, it creates a literal spiritual void. The cosmic foundation completely shifts from water to fire in an absolute instant, and it basically leaves you with nothing solid to stand on. Because these points sit right on the very edge of two totally opposing elements, any planets placed here just lack a firm foundation. If you're a parent or if you're navigating this yourself, it's usually incredibly validating to understand how this actually shows up in everyday life. This lack of a solid base can manifest as physical health sensitivities, especially back in early childhood. There's also often extreme emotional volatility. You know, that constant nagging feeling of being neither here nor there? That's classic Gandanta. Plus, you might face some really sudden chaotic upheavals. We're talking radical, overnight shifts in your career, where you live, or who you're in a relationship with.
And you know, it's worth briefly noting that it's actually not just about the planetary positions in the nakshatras. The source points out that this volatile Gandanta energy can also apply to the Tithi, which is the lunar day, and the yoga. When you have multiple layers of this Gandanta overlapping in these void zones at the exact time of birth, the astrological weather gets exponentially more sensitive. It becomes a bit of a perfect storm that requires very careful, very mindful management throughout your life. Let's move to and see how this builds across the chart. There are exactly 3 specific junctions in the entire 360-degree zodiac where this water-to-fire collision occurs, and each one has its own totally unique flavor. First up, we have the Revati-Ashwini junction, moving from Pisces to Aries. This is the spiritual Gandanta. It's really all about a new ego being born and the struggle of letting go of the past. Next is the Ashlesha-Magha junction, going from Cancer to Leo. This one is highly psychological. It deals with the shift from clingy, deep emotions to a strong desire for power, and it often involves some complex family lineage issues. And finally, the Jyeshta-Mula junction, from Scorpio to Sagittarius. This is the material and transformational zone, and honestly, it's often considered the most intense. It's the ultimate phoenix rising from the ashes, destroying the old to make way for a higher, absolute truth. Now I know, hearing about all that turbulence and phrases like destroying the old can sound absolutely terrifying, but I want you to consider this really profound insight from the source material. Gandanta isn't a curse, it's a call to extraordinary growth. Seriously, that completely changes the narrative, doesn't it? The critical nature of these points simply means the energy is incredibly high stakes. If an individual can successfully navigate this initial turbulence and actively work to untie the knot, they very often gain a level of extraordinary spiritual wisdom, massive resilience, and success that ordinary placements just literally cannot provide.
Section 1. Navigating the Turbulence. Essential Daily Precautions.
Okay, so to unlock that extraordinary growth, we first have to stabilize the flickering energy of the soul. Let's dive into the highly practical shifts required to manage this intense weather. Because when you're dealing with Gandanta, how you live your day-to-day life is often just as crucial as any ritual you might perform. Here are 4 essential daily actions for grounding yourself. First off, avoid hasty beginnings. Don't go launching a major project or, getting married during a turbulent period without checking the astrological timing, the muhurta. Second, guard your mental health. Avoid isolating yourself during high stress so that tangled knot doesn't turn into obsessive circular thinking. Third, the crucial point is this: practice the 24-hour rule. People with these placements often feel this massive, impulsive rush to completely upend their lives. Never make a life-altering decision in the heat of an emotional moment. Always prioritize stability over speed. And finally, respect the elements. Stay hydrated, use cooling pranayama breathwork, and actively manage that internal steam created by your chart.
Section 2. Untying the karmic knot. Powerful astrological remedies, or upayas. Right, now that we have those daily precautions locked in, let's shift our focus to the specific spiritual remedies designed to actively untie the karmic knot and ground you on a much deeper cosmic level. The most traditional foundational remedy here is the Gandanta Shanti Puja. Typically, this specific stabilizing ritual is performed within just a few days of a child's birth if they happen to be born under these specific stars. But please, take a breath. Do not panic if this wasn't done for you or your kid back then. The source provides some great reassurance here. It is absolutely never too late. This remedy can be performed much later in life. You ideally just schedule it on a day when the moon actively returns to that exact nakshatra in the sky.
Now, what's really interesting about this is how the ancient texts match specific guardian deities to perfectly bridge the elemental gaps of each unique junction. It is highly targeted. If your knot is at the Revati Ashwini point, worshiping Lord Ganesha helps remove obstacles for that really difficult new beginning. For the emotional turbulence of the Cancer-Leo Ashlesha Magha junction, Lord Shiva or performing a Rudra Abhishekam is recommended. Why? Because Shiva holds the moon and stabilizes that intense water energy. And for that super intense Jeshta Mula point, worshiping Lord Hanuman or Ma Kali provides the immense warrior-like power you need to overcome those deep-seated fears and aid in that complete phoenix transformation. But beyond the deities, there are also some highly actionable routines you can just build right into your everyday life to smooth out the jagged edges of a Gandanta chart. Dana, or donating, is an incredibly powerful way to dissolve past life karma. You can donate items related to your specific nakshatra, so maybe green items or books if Mercury is involved, or you can just donate to spiritual causes. Also, simply feeding birds grain and water is this wonderful universal remedy to lighten heavy outer planet energy. Then you have sound vibration therapy. Chanting the Maha Mrityunjaya mantra daily acts as the ultimate shield for your health and stability. You can also chant the specific bij or seed mantra for your exact nakshatra, like Om Tam or Om, to perfectly harmonize that specific frequency.
It's also about physical, environmental actions. You can use them to directly mirror the astrological balancing needed to untie your elements. On one side, you have the power of roots. Since mula literally translates to root, taking up something like gardening or just spending time around really old, established trees can profoundly ground someone who feels untethered or like they're just floating due to their placement. And on the flip side, you have water rituals. Because these points involve the end of water signs, offering morning water, which is known as arghya, to the sun helps you physically and spiritually harmonize those clashing fire and water elements right inside your own body.
Which brings us to our final empowering thought for this explainer. The source material emphasizes that while all these rituals and daily habits are incredibly helpful, self-awareness is actually the ultimate remedy. So, knowing this, how will you use your cosmic turbulence to rise like a phoenix? Understanding a Gandanta placement isn't about fearing your destiny at all. It's about recognizing the exact areas in your life where you are meant to break free from old patterns and achieve a much higher state of consciousness. You have the knowledge now to take a critical chart junction and transform it into your greatest source of intuition and strength. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer today. Stay focused, keep untying those knots, and I'll catch you next time.